In the day's other news, acting U.S. Secretary of the Navy Thomas Modly resigned after a tirade against the captain of a warship that has been hit by the coronavirus. Modly had fired Captain Brett Crozier of the aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt for sending out an email plea to evacuate his crew. Then on Sunday, the secretary addressed the crew in Guam and lambasted Crozier.
It was my opinion that if he didn't think that information was going to get out into the public in this information age that we live in, then he was A, too naive or too stupid to be the commanding officer of a ship like this.
Modly apologized last night for those comments, but calls for his ouster mounted. President Trump said this evening that he had no role in the resignation and would not have asked Modly to leave. He also designated James McPherson as the new acting Navy Secretary. He had become Undersecretary of the Army just last month. White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham is leaving that position after 9 months. At President Trump's direction, she never held a formal press briefing. She will now become the First Lady's Chief of Staff, as well as continue her role as Mrs. Trump's press secretary. The new White House Press Secretary will be Kayleigh McEnany, who is now spokeswoman for the Trump re-election campaign. In Afghanistan, the Taliban has broken off talks with the Afghan government. The group says that negotiations on a prisoner exchange have gone nowhere. The U.S. reached a troop withdrawal agreement with the militants in February. It's supposed to be a first step toward a broader settlement. Australia's top court today threw out the criminal convictions against Roman Catholic Cardinal George Pell for sexually abusing children. The judges found there was reasonable doubt about his guilt. Pell was released after 13 months behind bars and driven to a monastery in Melbourne as abuse survivor groups condemn the decision.
You just feel really sad because the emotions are just so vast, really, and there's so much to think about and to take on in all this.
Pell had been the most senior Catholic Church official to be jailed in the long-running abuse scandal. The University of Michigan is sending letters to nearly 6,800 former student athletes in a sexual abuse investigation. The school wants them to speak to investigators about allegations that go back to the 1960s. Former campus doctor Robert Anderson is accused of molesting students for decades. He died in 2008. A federal appeals court allowed Texas today to limit most abortions during the coronavirus pandemic. State officials have classified abortions as non-urgent procedures during the crisis. A lower court blocked the policy last week, but the appeals panel ruled that the state is protecting the public health. The ruling is likely to be appealed. A Black pioneer in magazine publishing has passed away. Earl Graves Sr. died on Monday after battling Alzheimer's disease. In 1970, he launched Black Enterprise. It was the first magazine about Black entrepreneurs to be owned by an African American, and he used it to champion Black business. Earl Graves was 85 years old. And a so-called supermoon will light up the sky tonight over much of the country. The moon will be full and closer than usual, less than 220,000 miles from Earth. That should make it the brightest and the largest lunar show of the year. We need it. Still to come on the NewsHour, speaking with the governor of Maryland on how his state is coping with the crisis. Front lines, what emergency medical technicians have seen in the fight against coronavirus. The mayor of Chicago on why Black Americans are being hit hardest by the pandemic and what can be done to address it. Plus, COVID-19 and the campaign, Wisconsin voters head to the polls.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.